Good afternoon. We are live today from the outdoors. I decided to change up the scenery today for today's videos, which is we're going to be talking about the 5 myths about diastasis that I constantly hear about as a pelvic floor PT. Hopefully the internet connection works okay out here. But we'll be going through the 5 myths that I hear as a pelvic floor therapist. When it comes to diastasis, some people say diastasis, potato, tomato, tomato. So we'll go ahead and get started on the 5 myths that I always hear. Actually, before we get into that, I am going to explain what it is, just in case anybody isn't quite sure what that means. So diastasis, and I switch it back and forth, FYI, so if you see me go back and forth between my pronunciation, I just switch it up every time I say it. So we have this awesome visual of different ways that diastasis could present itself. And basically what it is it's the separation of your rectus abdominis muscle at the linea alba. So you'll see different variations, and this typically is known for happening during pregnancy, and sometimes it stays around postpartum. So you'll see a lot of new moms, with goals of trying to heal their abdominal separation, which is diastasis. We also will see this in young kids. You'll see the abdominal separation with those little kiddos. You'll also see it in older adults especially a lot of men who have more prominent stomachs, and maybe they have held their breath for their whole life, and you'll see that they also experience abdominal separation and diastasis. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus a little bit more on the pregnancy postpartum side of it. So this picture here, this is what normal would be without a diastasis there. And then you have this one in the middle where the separation is more prominent around the belly button or the umbilicus here. For some other clients, we'll see it a little bit lower, so below the belly button. And then you could also see it above the belly button, more prominent, or it could just be kind of throughout the entire abdomen. So that's what it would look like. Now, when it comes to measuring it as a PT, we look at the width, we look at the depth, we also look at the tension that is created below the gap. And I will say that to some extent, having a 1 to 1.5 finger width separation is relatively in the range of normal. Some people will also have it even without having kids. So with all that being said, I'm going to pull up my list of the 5 top myths that I hear about diastasis, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the number 1 thing I hear is diastasis is abnormal. Like I said before, in about and this is what the research shows, so and 90% of women who are pregnant postpartum, they experience diastasis during pregnancy. And the reason why that is because as your belly is growing and you're during pregnancy, the abdominals have to move and make space for your growing baby. And that's why some babies grow, when moms say that they are carrying higher or they're carrying lower, that can kind of give you a clue of where more of the separation might be. And so I'll give an example. This was probably 5 years ago. I had a patient she came into my office and she was pregnant, and she was moving so carefully. She was scared to lay down. She was scared to sit up. She was just very focused on her abs and trying to make sure that it wouldn't happen. And if I could go back in time and talk to her and give her some reassurance, it's that, you can't, during pregnancy, you just really can't stop it from happening. But there are definitely things that you can do to reduce the impact of it and also improve your ability to heal postpartum with it. So that is a little story. Okay, the second myth is that I can't do anything to manage my DRA. That's, you can say DRA instead of diastasis as a short form in pregnancy. There is like so much that you can do during pregnancy to improve your ability to heal postpartum from diastasis. So some of the major things that we do in the clinic is working through what kind of core exercises should mom be doing during pregnancy to really reduce that risk of her abs separating significantly. And I will say pregnancies of multiples, so like if you're pregnant with twins and triplets, you are at a higher risk of diastasis happening, as well as when you have multiple pregnancies. So like during your second, third, fourth pregnancy, it can increase the likelihood of happening. Beyond just doing specific exercise depending, and people are like, well, what exercises should I do? And it really depends on the person. So it's just a very individualized sort of thing. So if you Google diastasis exercises on YouTube, those are just very general versions. And so one exercise that is good for somebody might not be good for another person. And then the other thing we talk about is a lot of intra-abdominal pressure management. And there is a plane going across above. The downside of the outdoors. So the other thing that we look at is intra-abdominal pressure. So, that looks like straining when you're going to the bathroom. That might look like holding your breath when you're exercising. A lot of people hold their breath and they don't even realize that they're doing it. And that can also make diastasis worse. So we'll coach people through that depending on like what their typical day looks like. Okay, the third myth that we hear is that you can't do any ab exercises during pregnancy because it will cause diastasis. That is not true. There are so many exercises that actually will prevent it from happening significantly and improve your likelihood of healing postpartum from it, like we mentioned before. Okay, number 4, somebody with diastasis can't do blank. So usually I'll hear, this is like usually postpartum, like, well, I can't do planks, I can't lift overhead, I can't do blah blah blah, and that's just not true. And that's something that we work on, that you would work with a PT on, is how can we help you do the exercises that you want to do and make sure that your abs are functioning the way that they should be. So yeah, you might not be able to handle a plank, or if you want to even take it further, like a bar muscle up when it comes to CrossFit, yeah, you might not be able to do it immediately postpartum, but we can work you there, and you can start your foundation first and then build back up to where you were or where you want to be, and you can totally do that. You just want to make sure that your abs aren't significantly doming and coning during that exercise. And if you're not really sure what that means, I can always do another follow-up video on that topic. But that's something that we do in the clinic, is checking our moms on, are they having any significant doming and coning of their abdomen with blank exercise? If they are, what can we do to fix it or change it, or do we need to scale back a little bit? Okay, the number 5 last myth is diastasis is not related to pelvic floor issues, and that is just simply not true. A lot of times we'll find that, and I'll even give an example actually. I had a patient, this is probably like 2 years ago now, and she had been to another pelvic floor therapist who was treating her for diastasis, and that PT did not do an internal exam and just gave her core exercises. She says that, it improved a little bit, but it was still significantly there to a point where it bothered her. So she stopped doing that, and then she ended up doing some online exercises for it, and again, kind of helped a little bit, but like not completely. When I did her evaluation, I found that this person had a lot of tension in their pelvic floor, and that tension was putting more pressure on her abdomen, causing the diastasis to look even more prominent than it actually was. And so we worked a lot on the pelvic floor side of things to help her diastasis. So whether you have leakage, you have pelvic floor tension or pain in your pelvis, in your hips, in your back, or prolapse, and you have diastasis, they are related. They are related. So that is the fifth myth that I always hear. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions about those myths,